Gunfire, dust, blood. The smell of burning wood carries across the Wyoming plains on a wind that tastes like ash and death. 9 bodies lie scattered in the dirt before a cabin that's been home to something sacred, something worth dying for. Silas Brennan stands in front of the flames, a Winchester, 1873, still warm in his weathered hands. 40 years old, born hard, made harder by war and loss and 18 months of whiskey-soaked grief. But tonight he's made a different choice. Tonight he's kept a promise. Behind him, a woman kneels in the dirt beside the last man who tried to take her. The smoking Colt 45 in her trembling hands tells the story that matters. She didn't wait to be saved. She saved herself. And in doing so, she saved them all. This is what they'll call the Red Cliff Massacre. But Silas Brennan calls it something else entirely. He calls it the day he stopped being a ghost and became a man again. 4 months earlier, he didn't know her name. 4 months earlier, he was still dead inside, just waiting for his body to catch up with the truth. 4 months earlier, on a cold March morning in 1884, the last thing Silas Brennan wanted was a reason to keep breathing. But sometimes salvation doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it arrives on a train from Boston with nothing but a worn suitcase and a letter written by a dead woman's hand. This is how it began. Not with hope, with dust and duty and a promise made to a woman who saw him better than he saw himself. March 20th, Red Cliff, Wyoming territory. The day the mail-order bride nobody wanted changed everything. The sun hasn't cleared the eastern ridge when Silas Brennan opens his eyes to another day he didn't ask for. 4:30 in the morning. Same time he's woken for 547 days straight. He doesn't set an alarm. The nightmares do that work for him. The cabin is cold. He didn't stoke the fire last night. Didn't see the point when you're just one man rattling around in a space built for two. The bedroom still smells like her. 18 months gone and he can still catch the ghost of lavender soap when the wind blows just right through the cracked window pane he hasn't bothered to fix. On the nightstand beside the bed, where he once slept beside a woman who loved him despite all his jagged edges, 3 things wait in the gray pre-dawn light. A half-empty whiskey bottle, a photograph in a tarnished silver frame, a letter folded so many times the creases have worn thin as spider silk. The photograph shows a younger Silas, 33 years old, clean-shaven, eyes that still held something like hope. The woman beside him in the frame has golden hair pulled back in a simple bun, brown eyes that crinkle at the corners when she smiles. Evelyn Rose Brennan, born 1850, died September 1883. Loved one broken soldier enough to marry him sight unseen through a mail-order bride arrangement that gave them 6 years of something he didn't deserve. The letter is hers too, written in the last weeks when the consumption hollowed her out from the inside and every breath sounded like someone tearing paper. He knows every word by heart, but he reads it anyway because this is the ritual that keeps him tethered to something beyond the whiskey. My dearest Silas, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're still here. I know you. I know you'll lock yourself away. You'll drink. You'll stop shaving. You'll let the ranch fall apart around you, because what's the point of mending fences when the only thing you wanted to protect is gone? But Silas, my love, I need you to hear this. You were broken when I found you. The war did that. All those things you saw during Sherman's march, all those people's homes you burned because orders are orders. That wasn't your fault. You were a good man who did terrible thing because men who'd never held a torch told you it was necessary. I married you anyway. Not despite your brokenness, but because I saw who you could become if someone just believed in you. Don't waste that. Don't let my death be the thing that finally destroys you. Live, Silas, for both of us. He folds the letter, returns it to the drawer, reaches for the whiskey bottle, and then in a moment of something that isn't quite strength, but isn't quite surrender, either he pours what's left down the dry sink instead. The taste of old mistakes still coats his tongue as he pulls on yesterday's clothes. Denim worn soft, cotton shirt that's seen better days. Boots that need new soles, but he keeps putting it off because walking into town means facing people, and people ask questions, and he's got no answers worth giving. Outside the ranch spreads before him in shades of gold and gray. Red Cliff Ranch. 160 acres of grazing land, creek water, and hard-won solitude. He bought it in 1874 with money saved from 10 years of cowboy work after he walked away from a war that taught him the only thing worse than killing is surviving what you've killed for. The barn needs work. The south fence is listing. The vegetable garden Evelyn planted has gone to seed and weeds. But the cattle are alive and the well still runs clean, and that's about all a man can ask when he's not sure he wants to be alive himself. He's midway through morning chores, mucking out the horse stall with the kind of mechanical precision that comes from muscle memory when he hears the hoofbeats. Ruth Campbell rides like a woman 20 years younger than her 65 years. Straight-backed in the saddle, gray hair, pulled into a bun so tight it could stop bullets. She reins her bay gelding to a stop in front of the barn with the air of someone who's got things to say and no patience for arguing. Silas Brennan, not Colt, she's one of the few who still uses his given name, says nicknames are for children and drunks, and he'd better figure out which one he's planning to be. Miss Ruth, you look like something the coyotes wouldn't eat. Good morning to you, too. She dismounts with a grunt, ties the reins to the fence post, and marches into his space with the kind of authority that comes from running the general store for 30 years and bearing a husband who had the good sense to die quickly instead of lingering. When's the last time you shaved? Don't recall. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't whiskey? This morning had coffee. Coffee isn't food. It's warm and it's wet and it keeps me upright. That's food enough. Ruth pulls a cloth-wrapped bundle from her saddlebag. The smell of fresh bread makes his stomach remember it's supposed to want things. Eat. And before you get stubborn about it, this isn't charity. This is me investing in my community's future. Can't have the best ranch hand in 3 counties dying of his own stupidity. He takes the bread because arguing with Ruth Campbell is like arguing with a Wyoming winter. You can do it all you want, but the cold's still going to find you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it by staying alive long enough to be useful again. She watches him tear off a piece of bread, watches him chew, watches him with eyes that have seen too many men give up, and she'll be damned if she loses another one. There's something at the post office for you. Didn't order anything. I know, that's what makes it interesting. Ruth, I'm not in the mood for mysteries. Life doesn't care about your mood, Silas. There's a package. It's got your name on it. J. Brennan from Boston. Marked fragile. Boston. Evelyn's sister lives in Boston, but they haven't spoken since the funeral when Silas was too drunk to stand straight during the burial, and her family made it clear what they thought of a man who'd let their sister die of consumption in a Wyoming cabin instead of bringing her back east to proper doctors. Probably a mistake. Then come to town and refuse it official-like. Give me an excuse to charge you for storage. You wouldn't. Try me. That's how she gets him into town. Not with kindness, but with the kind of practical stubbornness that turns caring into something a man can accept without feeling like he's being pitied. Red Cliff isn't much of a town. 15 buildings on one dirt street with pretensions of becoming something more. The general store, the saloon, the hotel where nobody decent stays, the church where Reverend Abrams preaches to 20 souls on a good Sunday. The marshal's office where Hank Winters keeps the peace mostly by looking the other way at things that don't require paperwork. Silas rides in beside Ruth with the sun climbing toward noon and the wind carrying the smell of horse manure and wood smoke and the particular kind of dust that only Wyoming can produce. Dry, ancient, tasting like minerals and broken dreams. People nod as he passes. Nobody speaks. That's the unspoken agreement they've all made. Give Brennan his space. Don't ask questions. Pretend the drunk who used to be somebody is just going through a rough patch instead of actively drowning in front of them. Marshal Winters is standing outside his office, thumbs hooked in his belt belly, straining the buttons of his vest. He's a soft man trying to look hard. Does an adequate job of it until you look at his eyes and see someone who'd rather be anywhere else having any other job. Colt, Ruth, Marshall, heard you're here for that package. Apparently. It's inside, been there 3 days. I was going to ride out and tell you, but figured you'd come eventually. The package sits on Ruth's counter wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. The handwriting on the label is careful. Feminine. Not Evelyn's sister. Someone else. Mr. J. Brennan, Red Cliff Ranch, Wyoming Territory. and underneath in smaller letters, handle with care. He picks it up. It's light. Whatever's inside doesn't weigh much. There's a letter attached to the outside with a wax seal already broken. Ruth leans against the counter. You going to open it or just stare at it until it confesses? Give me a minute. You've had 3 days. He breaks the string, unfolds the paper. Inside is a small wooden box and an envelope. The box contains nothing but tissue paper and the faint smell of ink. The envelope is what matters. The letter inside is written on expensive paper, the kind that costs more than most men make in a week. But the handwriting is shaky, old or sick, or both. Dear Mr. Brennan, you don't know me. My name is Margaret Hayes. I was Evelyn's employer when she lived in Philadelphia before she answered your advertisement for a mail-order bride. I'm writing to you because Evelyn asked me to. In her last letter to me received just weeks before her death, she included another letter, one for you. She asked me to hold it for 18 months and then send it to you along with this explanation. Evelyn knew you, Mr. Brennan. She knew you'd grieve, she knew you'd struggle, and she knew that sometimes the best gift we can give the people we love is a reason to keep going even when they can't find one themselves. I've done as she asked. The second envelope contains her final wish for you. I pray you have the courage to honor it. With sympathy, Margaret Hayes. His hands shake as he opens the second envelope. The handwriting is Evelyn's. Weaker than he remembers, written when the disease was already stealing her strength. My beloved Silas, 18 months. That's how long I'm asking Margaret to wait before sending this. 18 months of grief, of whiskey, of you punishing yourself for something that was never your fault. I'm dying, my love. We both know it. The consumption is in my lungs and no amount of mountain air or hope is going to change that. But I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of what happens to you after I'm gone. So I've done something you're going to be angry about, something you're going to fight. But Silas, my darling, stubborn man, I need you to trust me one last time. I've placed an advertisement in the Boston Herald for a mail-order bride, using your name, using our address. I've paid for it with my own savings from before we married. Money you didn't know I had. She'll be arriving in Redcliffe on March 20th, 1884. 18 months from my death. I've arranged everything. The train ticket, the introduction letter, all of it. Her name is Eleanor Ashford. She's a widow, 28 years old. Lost her husband to consumption 2 years ago, just like you're about to lose me. She wrote to me 3 times before I chose her. She's strong, she's kind, she's exactly the kind of woman who won't let you destroy yourself. I'm not trying to replace myself, Silas. I'm trying to save you. Because the man I married, the man who came back from war, convinced he was beyond redemption, that man deserves more than dying alone in a cabin that smells like regret. Give her a chance. Give yourself a chance. If you're reading this and you're angry, good. Anger means you're still alive. Anger means there's still fight left in you. Sas, use it, live. Love you. Again, that's not a request. It's a dying woman's command. Forever yours, Evelyn. The letter falls from his hands. Ruth picks it up, reads it, sets it down carefully between them like something that might explode. Silas. She ordered me a wife. Seems like I'm some kind of charity case. You are a charity case. Question is whether you're smart enough to accept the charity. He wants to be angry, wants to feel the kind of righteous fury that it lets him crumple the letter and walk away and prove that he's too broken to be saved. But underneath the anger is something else, something that feels dangerously close to hope and that terrifies him more than anything. When does she arrive? Ruth looks at the calendar on the wall. Today, 3 o'clock train. Today. Evelyn always did have timing. The train is late. It's always late. The Northern Pacific doesn't care much about schedules when you're this far from anything that matters. So Silas stands on the platform at 3:15, then 3:30, then 3:45, with the sun beating down and his shirt sticking to his back, and Ruth beside him, refusing to let him leave. You're going to meet her. I'm going to tell her there's been a mistake and send her back east. On whose money you going to pay for her ticket after she's come all this way? I didn't ask her to come. Evelyn did, and unless you're planning to spit on your dead wife's grave, you're going to at least hear what this woman has to say. The train arrives at 4:03 in a cloud of steam and squealing brakes and the particular kind of metal-on-metal sound that sets teeth on edge. 6 passengers step down onto the platform, a salesman with a sample case, a family of 4 heading for the gold fields, and a woman in a black dress carrying a single worn suitcase. Eleanor Ashford is not what he expected. He doesn't know what he expected. Maybe someone desperate, someone used up by life, someone who had no other options. But the woman who steps onto the Red Cliff platform stands straight despite the exhaustion written in every line of her body. 5'5", thin but not frail. Brown hair pulled back in a simple bun that's come partially undone during the 5-day journey from Boston. Eyes the color of new leaves, scanning the platform like a rabbit checking for wolves. She sees them. Sees Ruth first, probably because Ruth is the only woman present who looks like she might be waiting for someone. Then her eyes shift to Silas, and something happens. Some flicker of recognition that can't be recognition because they've never met. Unless Evelyn sent her a photograph. Unless she knows exactly who she's looking at. Ruth steps forward first. "Mrs. Ashford," the woman nods. Her voice when she speaks is steady despite everything. "Yes, I'm looking for Mr. James Brennan. I was told he'd be meeting me." "My name is Silas," he says, stepping forward, "because hiding is for cowards, and he's been enough of a coward for 18 months. Silas Brennan. I don't go by James." "Oh." She looks confused, pulls an envelope from her bag, checks the name. "The advertisement said James. The advertisement was placed by my late wife, without my knowledge." He watches her process this, watches the color drain from her cheeks, watches her grip tighten on the suitcase handle until her knuckles go white. "I see." 2 words. That's all she gives him. Not tears, not accusations, just acknowledgement. "I apologize for the deception, Mrs. Ashford. If I'd known, I would have sent word not to make the journey. But you didn't know." "No, ma'am. And I'm here." "Yes, ma'am." She looks around the platform, at the town beyond, at the vast empty nothing that stretches to every horizon, at the life she just stepped into based on a letter from a dead woman. "Is there a hotel?" "There is, but it's not safe for a woman alone." "Then what do you suggest, Mr. Brennan?" Ruth cuts in before he can answer. "You stay at the ranch, 2 nights until the Monday train. Silas will give you a bed and meals and we'll sort this out proper. I can pay for lodging." "I'm sure you can, but you're going to accept hospitality instead." "That's how we do things in Wyoming, Mrs. Ashford. We don't leave women stranded, even when circumstances are unfortunate." Eleanor looks at Silas, really looks at him, taking measure. If it's not too much trouble. Everything about this is trouble, but he hears Evelyn's voice in his head. "Give her a chance. Give yourself a chance." "No trouble, ma'am. Get your bags." The ride to the ranch takes 40 minutes. Eleanor sits behind him on the horse, careful not to touch him any more than necessary. Her suitcase is tied to the saddle. The silence between them is thick enough to choke on. Halfway there, he breaks it. "My wife, Evelyn, she died of consumption." "I know. She wrote me 3 times. That stops him. "She wrote you?" "Yes. The first time was the advertisement. I responded. She wrote back asking about my circumstances. I told her my husband had died of the same disease. She wrote a 3rd time saying she'd chosen me, that you were a good man who'd lost his way and just needed someone to believe in him again." The words land like punches. Good man, lost his way, someone to believe in him. She was optimistic. She was dying. That too. They ride in silence for another mile. Then Eleanor speaks again. "The man who owned the boarding house where I lived, Mr. Caldwell. He came to my room 3 times. The first 2 times I managed to keep the door locked. The 3rd time he brought a key." Silas feels rage coil in his gut, the kind that wants release through violence. "Did he?" "No, I had a lamp. I broke it over his head and left while he was still bleeding. That was 3 weeks ago. I had enough money for the train ticket Evelyn had sent. Nothing else, so here I am." "Here you are." "Mr. Brennan, I don't expect anything from you. I came here under false pretenses. That's not your fault. Give me a place to sleep for 2 nights and I'll be on the Monday train. Where will you go? I don't know yet, but that's my problem, not yours. They reach the ranch as the sun touches the western ridge. The cabin looks worse in the golden light. Broken window, sagging porch, the kind of neglect that speaks to a man who stopped caring about maintenance when he stopped caring about living. Eleanor dismounts with stiff movements. 5 days on a train followed by 40 minutes on a horse will do that. She looks at the cabin, doesn't comment on its condition, just picks up her suitcase and waits. Come inside. The cabin is cold, dark, smells like old coffee and older whiskey, and the particular staleness of a place where windows haven't been opened in months. He lights a lamp. The yellow glow doesn't improve things much. 2 rooms, the main room with a kitchen area, a table, 2 chairs, and a sofa that's seen better decades. The bedroom through a door that stands half open. You take the bedroom. I'll sleep out here. Mr. Brennan, I can't take your bed. Yes, you can. It's not a request. She sets her suitcase down, looks around with the kind of careful assessment that's looking for exits and weapons and anything that might be used for or against her. Is there anything I should know about the town about you? Town's small. Most folks are decent enough. Some aren't. There's a man named Luther Pike. Stay away from him. Why? Because he collects women like some men collect cattle, and the women he collects tend to die unfortunate deaths. Her face goes very still. Has anyone reported him to the law? Marshall's afraid of him. Pike owns half the town, the profitable half. And the other half belongs to people who can't afford to make him angry. Which are you? I'm the man who doesn't twin a damn about Pike's money or his threats, which is why he leaves me alone and why you need to stay away from him while you're here. She nods, processes, files it away. Thank you for the warning. Don't thank me, just don't do anything stupid. Like answering an advertisement for a mail-order bride placed by a dead woman. Despite everything, he almost smiles. Almost. Yeah, like that. She goes into the bedroom. He hears her moving around, opening drawers probably, seeing Evelyn's things still hanging in the wardrobe because he hasn't had the heart to pack them away, seeing the photograph on the nightstand, the one of him and Evelyn on their wedding day when he was 33, and still believed that maybe, just maybe, he deserves something good. He makes coffee, burns it, makes it again. By the time it's drinkable, she emerges from the bedroom with her hair down and her dress exchanged for a simpler one. Practical, ready to work if work is required. There's coffee if you want it. Thank you. They sit at opposite ends of the table, drinking burnt coffee, not talking. The silence is almost companionable until the sound of hoofbeats breaks it. Silas is at the window before the rider fully comes into view. His hand goes to the Winchester leaning beside the door. Stay inside. Who is it? Trouble. Luther Pike rides a black gelding that probably costs more than most men make in a year. He's a big man, 6'2", shoulders like an ox, face that's seen its share of fists and given back twice as many. 46 years old with the kind of weathered hardness that comes from taking what you want and not caring who gets hurt in the taking. He reins to a stop 20 feet from the cabin, doesn't dismount, just sits there with the late afternoon sun behind him, casting a shadow that reaches all the way to the porch. Brennan, Silas steps outside, Winchester in hand but not raised, not yet. Pike, heard you got a delivery from Boston. Thought I'd come see what all the fuss is about. News travels fast. In a town this small, news travels before it happens. Pike's eyes shift to the cabin window where Eleanor has appeared despite Silas's instruction to stay inside. Well now, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? Silas moves to block Pike's view. State your business or get off my land. Neighborly as ever, I see. I just wanted to welcome the new arrival. Let her know that Redcliffe is a friendly town, provided you know who your friends are. She's not staying. Monday train? That's a shame, pretty woman like that. Could use some feminine company in these parts. Gets lonely, you know. Man needs companionship. You've had 2 wives, Pike. Where are they? The temperature drops 10 degrees. Careful, Brennan. Those are dangerous words. So sue me for slander. Oh, wait. You can't, because I'm just asking questions. Questions a lot of people have asked. Funny how both your wives died young. Pike's hand moves toward his belt. Silas raises the Winchester. Don't. They hold like that for 5 heartbeats. Pike's hand hovering. Silas's finger on the trigger. Eleanor watching from the window with wide ease. Then Pike laughs. Actually laughs. You've got stones, Brennan. I'll give you that. But stones don't stop bullets. He turns his horse. Tell your lady friend I'll be seeing her around town. Whether actually you like it or not, he rides away at a leisurely pace. A man who knows he holds all the cards and doesn't need to rush to prove it. Silas doesn't lower the rifle until Pike disappears over the ridge. Then he turns to find Eleanor standing in the doorway. I told you to stay inside. I don't take orders well. I noticed. That man, Pike, he's the one you warned me about. Yes. He knows I'm here. Yes. And that's going to be a problem. Probably. She crosses her arms, vulnerable and defiant at the same time. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to be very honest with you. I came here expecting a husband. I found a widower who didn't ask for me. I'm prepared to leave on Monday and make my own way. But I need to know, is that man going to be a problem for me in the 2 days I'm here? Silas looks at her, really looks at her, sees the fear she's trying to hide, sees the exhaustion, sees a woman who's been running from one bad situation and has no guarantee she's not running straight into another. And he hears Evelyn's voice. Give her a chance. Not if I can help it, he says. She holds his gaze, searching for the lie, finding something else instead. Okay then? Okay. They go back inside. He makes dinner, beans and salt pork and coffee that's only slightly less burnt than the first pot. She doesn't complain, just eats with the mechanical efficiency of someone who's learned not to waste food. After she washes the dishes without asking, he doesn't stop her, just watches from this doorway as this stranger who's supposed to be his wife moves around the kitchen like she's mapping territory. You don't have to do that. I'm paying for room and board with labor since I can't pay with money. I told you, no payment necessary. And I told you I don't take charity. Stubborn. Evelyn was stubborn too. Maybe that's a requirement for women who answer mail-order bride advertisements. You have to be stubborn to bet your whole life on a letter from a stranger. Night falls. She retreats to the bedroom. He takes the sofa, lies there in the dark, listening to the wind and the old woods settling and the sound of a woman crying very quietly into a pillow in the next room. He wants to go to her, wants to tell her it'll be okay. But he doesn't know if it will be okay, and he's done lying to make people feel better. So he lies there, awake, thinking about Evelyn and the letter, and the woman in the next room, and Luther Pike's shadow stretching across his porch. Around midnight, hoofbeats approach again. But this time it's not Pike. It's Marshal Hank Winters, looking nervous and apologetic in equal measure. Silas meets him at the door. Kind of late for social call-outs, Hank. I know, I'm sorry, but I needed to talk to you about Pike, about the woman, but she's got a name. I know, look, Colt, you need to understand something. Pike came by my office tonight, asked a lot of questions about Mrs. Ashford, where she's from, how long she's staying, whether you two are actually married. What did you tell him? The truth, that she's a mail-order bride who arrived today, that you weren't expecting her, that she's leaving Monday. And Winters looks miserable. And he asked me about the territorial law regarding unclaimed mail-order brides. Something cold settles in Silas's chest. What law? Territory Statute 1872. If a mail-order bride arrives and the man who ordered her refuses to marry her within 48 hours, she's considered unclaimed property. Anyone can file a claim. Property. That's what the law says. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's also the law. And Pike knows Judge Potter. Hell, Potter owes Pike money from poker debts. If Pike files a claim and you're not married to her, Potter will rule in his favor. Silas looks at the closed bedroom door, at the woman sleeping behind it who came here expecting safety and found herself in the middle of something that might get her killed. How long do I have? She arrived at 4 this afternoon. That gives you until 4 p.m. Monday? 48 hours. And if we marry, then she's legally protected. Pike can't touch her without going through you first. And if we don't, Winters won't meet his eyes. Then I'd advise her to get on that train and never look back. Because Pike doesn't give up on things he wants. And Cole, I saw the way he looked when he was talking about her. He wants her. The marshal leaves. Silas stands in the darkness of his cabin, thinking about laws written by men who've never been desperate and women treated like property, and the choice he's being forced to make. Give her a chance, Evelyn's letter said. But Evelyn didn't know about Pike, didn't know about territorial law, didn't know that giving Eleanor a chance might mean signing her death warrant. He should wake her up, tell her to leave tonight, get her on a horse and riding for the next town before Pike can make his move. But he doesn't. Instead, he sits at the table, pulls out paper and ink, and starts writing a letter to a woman sleeping 20 feet away. A letter explaining everything. A letter offering a choice that's not really a choice at all. Because Silas Brennan has failed to protect one woman he loved, he'll be damned if he fails to protect another one, even if she's just a stranger who had the misfortune to answer a dead woman's advertisement. Outside, the Wyoming night stretches vast and cold and full of possibilities, both terrible and strange. Inside, a cowboy who thought he was done with living starts remembering what it feels like to have something worth fighting for. And in the bedroom, Eleanor Ashford sleeps fitfully dreaming of Boston and dead husbands and the man with sad eyes who warned her about monsters, but didn't mention he might be the only thing standing between her and becoming their next victim. Morning will bring decisions. Morning will bring truth. Morning will bring the beginning of something neither of them asked for, but both of them desperately need. Dawn breaks cold and unwelcome over Red Cliff Ranch. Silas hasn't slept. The letter he wrote to Eleanor sits on the table between a cold cup of coffee and the weight of a decision he's not sure he has the right to make. 4 pages of careful explanation. The territorial law, Pike's intentions, the choice that isn't really a choice. He hears her moving in the bedroom. Water being poured into the wash basin. The quiet sounds of a woman preparing to face a day that's going to change everything whether she's ready or not. When she emerges, she's wearing the same black dress from yesterday. Widow's weeds, a reminder that she's already survived losing one man. The question is whether she's willing to risk her heart on another one, even if the terms are nothing like what either of them expected. She sees a letter immediately, sees him sitting there looking like he's been wrestling demons all night and lost. Mr. Brennan, there's something you need to read. She picks up the letter, reads it standing up. He watches her face as she processes each line. The law, the timeline, Pike's claim. The only solution he can think of that doesn't involve her running for her life. When she finishes, she sets the letter down very carefully, like it might explode if handled wrong. You're asking me to marry you. I'm offering you a legal protection against a man who sees you as property he intends to own. That's not the same thing as asking. No, ma'am, it's not. She walks to the window, looks out at the ranch spreading before her in shades of gold and shadow, at the life she stepped into yesterday expecting one thing and finding something else entirely. This law, it's real. Marshall Winters says so, and Hank's a lot of things, but he's not a liar. And if I refuse, if I get on that train Monday, Pike will be waiting at the next station, or the one after that. He's got money and connections and more patience than most predators. You'll be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. And if I marry you, then you're under my protection, legal and binding. Pike can threaten all he wants, but he can't touch you without going through me first. She turns to face him. What do you get out of this arrangement, Mr. Brennan? The question catches him off guard. What do you mean, You're offering to protect a stranger, to marry someone you didn't ask for and don't want, to make yourself a target for a dangerous man. What's in it for you? He could lie, could dress it up in noble language about doing the right thing, but she deserves better than that. Peace, he says simply. My wife died because I was too drunk and too stupid to get her proper medical care in time. I've been carrying that for 18 months. Maybe if I can keep you alive, I can sleep through a night without seeing her face. That's honest. You asked. I did. She comes back to the table, sits down across from him. What would the terms be? Same as I wrote in the letter. We marry today. You stay here as long as you need to. 6 months a year, whatever it takes for you to figure out your next move. During that time, you're protected. When you're ready to leave, I'll give you money for travel, and we'll arrange a quiet divorce. And in the meantime, you live in the bedroom. I sleep out here. No expectations, no obligations beyond the legal ones. You're offering me a business arrangement. Yes, ma'am. Dressed up as a marriage. The marriage is real enough for the law. What it is between us, that's something else. She studies him, looking for the lie, looking for the angle, looking for whatever it is men like Caldwell and Pike hide behind polite words. She doesn't find it. What she finds instead is a man offering her the only kind of salvation he knows how to give. Practical, honest, no promises of love or happiness, just a roof and a name, and a Winchester between her and the things that hunt women in the dark. If I say yes, I need you to understand something. I'm listening. I won't be property, not yours, not Pike's, not anyone's. I'll work for my keep. I'll pull my weight, but I won't be owned. I'm not asking you to be. And when I decide to leave, you'll honor your word. You'll let me go without a fight. Yes, ma'am. Even if you change your mind between now and then. Even then. She picks up the letter again, reads it one more time like she's memorizing evidence for a trial. Then she sets it down and extends her hand across the table. 6 months. Then I'm free to go. He takes her hand. Her grip is firm. No trembling. No hesitation. Deal. When do we need to do this? As soon as possible. I'll ride into town and talk to Judge Potter. See if we can get it done today. Will he agree? He will if I make it worth his while. I don't have money for bribes. I do. And before you argue, this isn't charity. This is me investing in a solution to a problem that affects us both. She doesn't like it. He can see that in the set of her jaw. But she's practical enough to know that pride is a luxury neither of them can afford right now. Okay, but I'm cooking breakfast first. You look like you haven't eaten in 3 days. I had coffee. Coffee isn't food. You sound like Ruth. Ruth sounds like someone with sense. She moves to the kitchen area, opens the cupboard, finds it mostly bare except for coffee beans and some salt pork that's seen better days. Doesn't comment, just works with what's there. He watches her cook. Economical movements. No wasted motion. The kind of efficiency that comes from years of making do with less than enough. Your husband, Thomas. What did he do before he got sick? Bookkeeper for a shipping company in Boston. Good man, quiet, loved numbers more than people, but he was kind. How long were you married? 4 years. The last 6 months were just watching him die by inches. Consumption takes its time when it wants to be cruel. Evelyn lasted 8 months after the diagnosis, coughing blood by the end. Nothing I could do except watch. Did you love her? The question is direct. No dancing around it. Yes, ma'am. She was the first person since the war who looked at me and didn't see a killer. She saw someone worth saving. Were you a killer? Yes, ma'am. Union Army 62 to 65. Sherman's march through Georgia. We burned everything from Atlanta to the sea. Plantations, farms, anything that could feed the Confederacy. They told us it was necessary, told us it would end the war faster. Maybe it did. Doesn't make the screaming stop when I close my eyes. She sets a plate in front of him. Beans and salt pork fried up with the last of an onion she found in the root cellar. My father fought for the Union too. Came back different. Drank himself to death by the time I was 12. So I know what war does to men. I know what it takes and what it leaves behind. And you're willing to marry someone carrying that weight. I'm willing to marry someone honest enough to admit he's carrying it. That's more than most men will do. They eat in silence. The food is simple, but it's the first real meal he's had in longer than he wants to admit. When they're done, he stands. I'll ride into town, arrange everything with Potter, be back by noon. Should I come with you? Better if you stay here. Pike's less likely to cause trouble if you're not visible. I don't hide well. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. There's a difference. She nods. Okay. But Mr. Brennan, yes. If we're going to be married, even on paper, you should probably call me Eleanor or Nora. Most people use Nora. Nora then, and you can call me Silas or Colt if you prefer. Which do you prefer? Silas. Colt's a name from before. When I thought being quick with a gun made you someone worth respecting. Silas it is. He rides into town with the morning sun climbing and his mind already 3 steps ahead. Judge Potter is corrupt, but he's predictable. $50 should do it. Maybe 75 if the old man's feeling greedy. It's money Silas doesn't want to spend, but there are worse investments than keeping a woman alive. Potter's office sits above the saloon, convenient for a man who does most of his business over whiskey and cards. Silas climbs the stairs and knocks once before entering. The judge is exactly where expected, behind a desk covered in legal papers and empty glasses, looking like every crooked official Silas has ever met. 70 years old with liver spots and the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "Brennan, didn't expect to see you today." "I need a marriage license." Potter's eyebrows rise. "That's so, heard you had a visitor from Boston." News travels fast. Only kind of news there is in a town this small. You planning to make an honest woman of her. Planning to marry her before Pike gets ideas about filing claims. "Ah, so you heard about that territorial statute?" "I did." "Smart man. Though I have to wonder why you'd go to all this trouble for a woman you've known less than 24 hours. "I have my reasons." "I'm sure you do. Question is, what's it worth to you?" And there it is, the angle, the price. $50. Potter leans back in his chair. "I was thinking more like 100. "You were thinking you could squeeze a desperate man. 50 is fair. 50 is what you're getting. Or I could tell you the paperwork is going to take a few days, maybe till Wednesday, after Pike's already filed his claim." Silas puts his hand on his belt, not threatening, just reminding Potter what's there. "You could do that, and then I could tell the whole town that you're in Pike's pocket, that you're willing to sell women to the highest bidder. See how that plays in the next election." Potter's smile doesn't waver, but something cold enters his eyes. "You're in a mood today." "I'm in the mood to get this done legal and proper. $50. We do it this afternoon. You get paid when the license is signed." 75. 60. Final offer. Potter considers, calculates, decides that $60 is better than making an enemy of the one man in Redcliffe who doesn't care about his threats. "Fine, Thama, 60. Be here at 2 o'clock. Bring your bride and 2 witnesses. I'll bring Ruth Campbell and Marshall Winters. Hank won't like being put in the middle of this. Hank will do what's right, eventually." Silas leaves before Potter can change his mind. He finds Ruth at the general store elbow, deep in inventory, and tells her what's happening. She doesn't look surprised. "Evelyn would approve." "Evelyn's the reason I'm in this mess. Evelyn's the reason you're still breathing instead of pickled in a whiskey barrel. Don't you dare dishonor her memory by pretending this is anything but a gift." "Some gift. I'm marrying a stranger to protect her from a monster." "You're marrying a woman your wife chose for you because she knew exactly what kind of man you needed. Someone strong enough to handle your damage. Someone who's already survived her own. Give it time, Colt. You might be surprised." He doubts it, but he doesn't argue. Ruth's already pulling out the dress she wore to her own wedding 40 years ago, talking about alterations, and how Nora can't possibly get married in widow's weeds. By the time he gets back to the ranch, it's nearly noon. Nora is waiting on the porch. She's cleaned the cabin. He can tell by the way light actually comes through the windows now. The smell of lye soap and determination hangs in the air. Potter agreed. 2 o'clock, Ruth's bringing a dress. "And after you're Nora Brennan, legally, permanently, at least until you decide otherwise." She nods, doesn't smile, but something in her shoulders relaxes, like she's been holding herself ready for a fight and just realized she might not have to face it alone. The ceremony happens in Judge Potter's office with all the romance of a cattle auction. Ruth stands as witness wearing her Sunday best and looking like she's daring anyone to object. Marshall Winters is there too, shifting his weight from foot to foot and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Nora wears the dress Ruth brought. Simple blue cotton, too big in the shoulders, but Ruth pinned it and it works well enough. She's taken her hair down and pinned it back up in a style that makes her look younger than 28. Vulnerable, which maybe is the point. Silas cleaned up, shaved for the first time in 3 days, put on his one good shirt, found his father's wedding ring in a drawer where he'd buried it after Evelyn's funeral, and told himself he'd never need it again. Potter reads from a book he probably hasn't opened in years. The words are familiar, legal, binding. Do you, Silas Brennan, take Eleanor Ashford to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Eleanor Ashford, take Silas Brennan to be your lawfully wedded husband? Nora looks at him, 5 seconds of silence where the whole world waits. Then I do. By the power vested in me by Wyoming territory, I pronounce you husband and wife. Potter doesn't say anything about kissing. Good, because Silas isn't ready for that, and he doubts Nora is either. They shake hands instead. Formal, distant, two people entering a contract neither of them wanted, but both of them need. Ruth hugs Nora. Welcome to Redcliffe, dear. You've got family here now, whether you like it or not. Winters shakes Silas's hand. You know what you're doing. Not even a little bit. Good luck then. You're going to need it. They sign the papers. Potter gets his $60. The license goes on record with the territorial government. By 3 o'clock, Eleanor Ashford ceases to exist and Nora Brennan takes her place. They ride back to the ranch in silence. Husband and wife. Partners in a marriage of convenience that might be the only thing standing between her and a shallow grave. When they get home, she goes straight to the bedroom. Closes the door. He hears her crying again, but this time it's different. Not grief, something else. Relief maybe, or terror. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. He sits on the porch and watches the sunset over the land that's legally his but feels like it belongs to ghosts, Evelyn's ghost. The ghosts of men he killed in Georgia. The ghost of who he used to be before war taught him that honor and survival are rarely the same thing. Around midnight, Nora emerges. She's changed into a nightgown with a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. She sits in the chair beside him without asking permission. Can't sleep. Not yet. You. Haven't tried. They sit in the dark, listening to the night sounds. Coyotes in the distance. Wind through the grass. The particular silence that comes from two people who don't know what to say to each other. Your wife, Evelyn, would she be angry about this? No, this was her idea. Marrying me specifically or just marrying someone? You specifically. She wrote to you 3 times, chose you. She was particular about things like that. What did she see in me? Strength, I'd guess, and maybe some of the same scars she saw in herself. Was she a mail-order bride too? From Philadelphia, answered my advertisement in '67, came west on a train just like you did. Scared out of her mind, but too proud to show it. Did you love her right away? No, love came later. After we'd spent enough time together that I stopped seeing what I expected and started seeing who she actually was. And when did that happen? About 3 months in, she was trying to fix the porch railing. Doing it all wrong. I came out to help, and she told me to go to hell. She could figure it out herself. And she did. Took her 6 hours and a lot of cursing, but she figured it out. That's when I knew I'd married someone who wasn't going to need me to be anything except honest. Nora pulls the shawl tighter. I don't need rescuing Silas. I know that's what this looks like. But I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for a hero. Good, because I'm just a man trying to do one thing right before I die. That what I am your chance at redemption? Maybe, or maybe you're just a woman who deserves better than Pike, and I happen to be in a position to help. Does it matter? I don't know yet. Ask me in 6 months. She stands, starts to go back inside, then stops. Silas, yeah, thank you for today, for all of it. I know this wasn't what you wanted. Wasn't what you wanted either. No, but maybe that's okay. Maybe sometimes the things we don't want turn out to be exactly what we need. She goes inside, leaves him sitting in the dark thinking about want and need and the difference between surviving and living. The first week passes in careful distance. They orbit each other like planets learning their gravitational pull. Nora rises first, makes coffee that's only slightly less burnt than his. She cooks breakfast while he does morning chores. They eat in silence that's getting easier each day. She cleans without asking permission. Opens windows closed for 18 months. Lets light and air back into spaces that had forgotten what those things felt like. She doesn't touch Evelyn's things in the bedroom. Doesn't move the photographs or the dresses. Just works around them like they're holy relics, which maybe they are. By week 2, something shifts. She starts helping with ranch work. City soft hands that blister from fence mending. But she doesn't complain, just wraps the blisters and keeps working. He teaches her things, how to hammer a nail straight, how to feed cattle without spooking them, how to read the sky for weather changes. She's a quick study. By the end of the second week, she can string barbed wire well enough that it'll hold through winter. Evenings, they sit on the porch, sometimes talking, sometimes not. The silence between them is no longer uncomfortable. It's just quiet, the kind of quiet that two people can share when they're learning to exist in the same space without constantly bumping into each other's damage. Ruth visits twice a week, brings supplies and gossip in equal measure. She watches Silas and Nora together with the knowing eyes of a woman who's seen enough marriages to spot the real thing, even when the participants haven't figured it out yet. You two are doing better than I expected. Silas is repairing a saddle. Nora is mending a fence 20 yards away, close enough to hear if she wants to, far enough to pretend she's not listening. We're surviving. You're doing more than that. I see the way you look at her when she's not watching. Ruth, don't Ruth me. I know what I see. You're starting to care. She's family. I'm supposed to care whether she lives or dies. That's not the kind of caring I'm talking about, and you know it. He doesn't answer, because Ruth's right and admitting it feels dangerous. Caring about Nora means having something to lose. Having something to lose means living with fear again. And fear is exhausting. But it's also evidence that he's still alive, still capable of feeling something beyond the numb gray that's colored his world since Evelyn died. Week 3 brings the shooting lessons. Tomorrow I'm teaching you to shoot. She looks up from the book she's reading, one of Evelyn's, poetry. He never understood why Evelyn liked it, but seeing Nora with the same book makes something ache in his chest. Why, Bob? Because Pike's not going to stop. And if something happens to me, you need to be able to protect yourself. You think something's going to happen to you. I think Pike's patient, but he's not that patient. Eventually he'll make a move. When he does, I need to know you can handle a gun. I've never shot anything in my life. Then tomorrow's a good day to start. She closes the book. Okay, but Silas, don't die. I'm only just starting to get used to you. He almost smiles. I'll do my best. The next morning, he sets up tin cans on the fence rail behind the barn. 6 of them. Targets that won't shoot back. He loads Evelyn's old Colt 45 and hands it to Nora. Heavy. It's supposed to be. Heavier gun means less recoil. I don't know what that means. Means it won't kick back and break your nose when you fire it. He shows her how to hold it. 2 hands, firm grip, feet shoulder-width apart, arms extended but not locked. Point it at the can on the left. When you're ready, squeeze the trigger. Don't pull. Squeeze. She does. The gun roars. The bullet goes wide. The can stays put. Again. She fires 5 more times, misses every shot. I'm terrible at this. You're learning. There's a difference, Bam. He stands behind her, adjusts her stance, his hands on her shoulders guiding her into proper position. She's warm through the cotton dress, solid, real in a way that makes him acutely aware of how long it's been since he touched another person with something other than functional necessity. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. On the empty squeeze. She does. The can jumps off the fence. I hit it. You did. She turns. They're close, 6 inches between them, her eyes bright with accomplishment, his hands still on her shoulders. For a moment, neither of them moves. Then he steps back, clears his throat. Practice with the rest. I'll set them up again. She hits 3 out of 6 on the next round, 5 out of 6 the round after that. By the time the sun's overhead, she's dangerous with a pistol, and Silas is trying very hard not to think about how good it felt to stand that close to her. That night at dinner, she's quiet. Finally, she speaks. The 6 months. When they were up. What happens if I don't want to leave? He stops eating. What? You said 6 months and then I could go. But what if I want to stay? What would that mean? Why would you want to stay? Because for the first time since Thomas died, I don't feel like I'm just surviving. I feel like I'm building something. Maybe it's not what I expected. Maybe it's not what either of us wanted. But it's something. And something is better than nothing. He looks at her across the table. This woman who came here expecting one thing and found another. This woman who's making his cabin feel like a home again. This woman who's making him remember what it's like to want to wake up in the morning. If you wanted to stay, we'd figure it out. As husband and wife, Really, husband and wife? Is that what you want? I don't know yet, but I think I might. Eventually, if you'd be open to it. His heart does something complicated in his chest, fear and hope tangled so tight he can't tell them apart. I'd be open to it. She smiles. It's the first real smile he's seen from her. It transforms her face from pretty to beautiful. Okay then, let's see how the next few months go. They don't know it yet, but they won't get a few months. They'll barely get a few more weeks before everything explodes. Because Pike's patience is running out. And when men like Luther Pike run out of patience, people die. But tonight there's just two people sharing a meal and starting to believe that maybe broken things can fit together after all. Tomorrow will bring its own problems. Tonight there's something almost like peace. And for Silas Brennan, that's more than he's had in a very long time. Week 5 begins with fire. Silas wakes to the smell of smoke and the sound of Nora shouting his name. He's off the sofa and grabbing the Winchester before his eyes are fully open. Through the window, he sees orange flames dancing against the night sky. Not the cabin, the barn. Stay inside. Like hell. They run together. The barn is fully engulfed. 40 years of dried timber burning like kindling. The horses are already out, thank God, spooked into the corral by the heat. But everything else is gone. Tack, tools, feed for the winter, 2 months of work erased in minutes. They can't fight it, can only watch it burn and make sure it doesn't spread to the house or the grass. By the time the flames die down to embers, it's nearly dawn, and they're both covered in soot and ash and the particular exhaustion that comes from watching something you built turn to charcoal. Nora sits on the porch steps, doesn't cry, just stares at the smoking ruins with a blank expression that worries him more than tears would. Pike, yeah, he's escalating. Yeah. What do we do? Silas sits beside her, the Winchester across his knees. We rebuild, and we make sure he knows we're not running. That barn was worth $500 at least. Money can be earned back. Pride can't. She looks at him. Is that what this is about, pride? No, it's about not letting men like Pike win. He burned the barn to send a message. If we run, the message is received. If we stay, we send one back. What message is that? That we're not afraid of him. But we are afraid. I am anyway. Being afraid and running are two different things. You can be scared and still stand your ground. That's called courage. She almost laughs. I don't feel very courageous. You shot 6 tin cans yesterday. You're cooking meals and mending fences, and you married a stranger to escape a worse fate. Nora, you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. You just don't know it yet. She leans against his shoulder, just slightly, testing. He doesn't pull away. What if he comes for the house next? Then I'll be ready. By noon, the whole town knows about the barn. Ruth arrives first with bread and fury in equal measure. That son of a bitch. Language, Ruth. Don't you language me, Silas Brennan. Pike burned your barn and everyone knows it, and nobody's going to do a damn thing about it because they're all scared. Can't blame them for being scared. I can and I will. Fear only works when everyone agrees to be afraid. The minute someone stands up, the whole thing collapses. Marshall Winters shows up an hour later. Looks at the ruins, looks at Silas and Nora, looks everywhere except where he should be looking. You see who did this? No witnesses, but we both know who's responsible. Knowing and proving are different things, Colt. So you're not even going to investigate what barns catch fire, especially old ones. It was arson, Hank. You can still smell the kerosene. Winters shifts his weight. Even if I could prove Pike was behind it, what do you want me to do, arrest him? On what charge? The man owns half this town. Judge Potter would have him out before I finish the paperwork. So we just let him terrorize people. I'm saying pick your battles, and maybe consider whether this battle is worth dying for. After Winters leaves, Nora asks the question Silas has been avoiding. Is it worth dying for? Depends on what we're dying for. If it's just a barn, no. If it's the principle that people should be able to live without fear, then yeah, maybe it is. That's very noble, also very stupid. The two aren't mutually exclusive. She smiles despite everything. No, I suppose they're not. That evening, more visitors. Daniel Wright, the rancher whose cattle Pike poisoned last year. Thaddeus Blackwood, young and idealistic, and still naive enough to think justice matters. Reverend Abrams from the church. Doc Jenkins with his medical bag and his quiet competence. They gather in what's left of the barn, standing in the ash and char, and they make a plan. We call a town meeting, Abrams says. Force everyone to choose a side. Public record. Who stands with Pike and who stands against him. That'll just make Pike angrier, Winters warns. He showed up uninvited, but nobody asked him to leave. Good, Daniel says. Let him be angry. Angry men make mistakes. Angry men also burn barns. And next time it might not be a barn, might be a house with people inside. Thad speaks up. So what's the alternative? We all just bow down, let him do whatever he wants because we're too scared to fight back. I'm saying be smart about it. Pike has money and men and connections. You've got what, a half dozen people willing to stand up. Those aren't good odds. Silas has been quiet, listening, thinking. Now he speaks. The odds don't matter if the cause is right. My daddy used to say that. He fought in the Mexican War, died when I was 12. But I remember him saying the thing about courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing it anyway. Your daddy was smart, Ruth says. She's been standing in the doorway. Nobody heard her arrive. Mine said something similar. He said evil only wins when good men do nothing. Well, we've been doing nothing for too long. It's time we did something. Like what? Winters asks. Like exactly what Reverend Abrams said. We call a meeting. We make everyone choose. We show Pike that he doesn't own this town as completely as he thinks he does. The meeting happens 3 days later in the church. It's the only building large enough to hold everyone. 40 people show up, more than Silas expected, less than Ruth hoped for. Pike arrives with 5 men. Not his whole crew, but enough to make a statement. He sits in the back row like a king observing his subjects, smiling, confident. A man who knows he holds all the cards. Mayor Grayson calls the meeting to order. He's a weak man, always has been. The kind who got elected because nobody else wanted the well, and he was too vain to say no. We're here to discuss the recent incidents in Red Cliff, the barn fire at the Brennan Ranch, the cattle poisoning last year, the general atmosphere of fear that settled over our community. Alleged incidents, Pike calls from the back. Let's be clear, I haven't been charged with anything. Because charging you requires evidence and witnesses, and both of those seem to disappear whenever your name comes up, Ruth says. Careful, Mrs. Campbell. Slander is a serious accusation. So is arson. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. People shift in their seats, looking at Pike, looking at Ruth, wondering who to side with. Reverend Abrams stands. The question before us is simple. Do we continue to allow one man to control this town through fear and intimidation? Or do we stand together and say enough? What exactly are you accusing me of? Reverend Pike's voice is soft, dangerous. I'm not accusing, I'm asking. How many coincidences does it take before they stop being coincidences? 2 wives dead, cattle poisoned, barns burned, businesses threatened. At what point do we acknowledge the pattern? At the point where you can prove it in a court of law, which you can't. So maybe you should sit down and stop making wild accusations based on nothing but gossip and paranoia. Silas stands. My barn didn't burn itself, Pike, and the smell of kerosene doesn't just appear out of thin air. Barns catch fire. It's unfortunate, but it happens, especially when someone lights them. Pike rises. They face each other across 40 feet of church pews and accumulated resentment. You're calling me an arsonist. I'm stating facts. My barn burned. You threatened me 3 weeks ago. You told me everything I love would burn. Those were your exact words. Then my barn burns. That's not coincidence. That's prophecy. Prove it. I don't need to prove it to know it's true, and everyone in this room knows it too. The question is whether they're brave enough to say it out loud. Silence, long and uncomfortable. People looking at their hands, at the floor, anywhere but at Pike or Silas. Then Nora Stan. Silas tries to catch her eye to warn her, but she's not looking at him. She's looking at Pike. I don't know most of you. I've only been in Red Cliff for 5 weeks. But I've seen enough to understand what's happening here. You're all afraid, and you have a right to be. Luther Pike is a dangerous man, But here's what I've learned. Dangerous men only have power when everyone agrees to be powerless. The minute someone stands up, the whole illusion collapses. Strong words from someone who's only here because she needed a husband, Pike says. You're right, I needed a husband. But I got more than that. I got a man who's willing to fight for what's right, even when it costs him everything. I got a community that, despite its fear, still has people like Ruth and Daniel and Reverend Abrams who remember what it means to stand for something. And I got a chance to be more than just a victim, to be someone who fights back. She's not done. She walks down the aisle toward Pike. Silas's hand goes to his belt, but she waves him off. You told Silas that everything he loves would burn. You're right about one thing. He does love this ranch. He loves this town. And whether he's ready to admit it yet or not, I think he's starting to love me too. But here's what you don't understand about love, Mr. Pike. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous, because a man with nothing to lose will run, but a man with something worth protecting will burn the whole world down to keep it safe. She's 3 feet from Pike now, close enough that he could reach out and grab her. But he doesn't, because everyone in the church is watching, and even Pike isn't bold enough to assault a woman in front of 40 witnesses. So go ahead, burn our barn, poison our cattle, threaten our lives, but understand this. Every time you come for us, we're going to stand up. Every time you try to break us, we're going to get stronger. And eventually you're going to realize that you've picked a fight with people who have nothing left to lose and everything worth fighting for. She turns her back on him, walks back to Silas, sits down. The church is silent. Then Ruth starts clapping, slow, deliberate. One pair of hands that becomes two when Doc Jenkins joins in, then Daniel, then Thad, then 10 more people until half the church is applauding and Pike is standing in the back watching his power crack. He leaves, doesn't say another word, just walks out with his 5 men following. The message is clear. This isn't over. Mayor Grayson tries to restore order, but it's too late. The meeting dissolves into smaller conversations. People choosing sides, some with Pike out of fear, some against him out of principle. The town is divided and everyone knows it. Outside, Silas catches Nora by the arm. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest. Probably both. You just made yourself a target. I was already a target. Now at least I'm a target who fought back. He wants to be angry, wants to lecture her about safety and caution and not poking bears. But looking at her, seeing the fire in her eyes and the set of her jaw, all he can think is that Evelyn chose well. We should get home. Pike's going to retaliate, and I want to be ready. They ride back with Thad and Daniel as escorts. The sun is setting. The air tastes like rain, or maybe blood. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. At the ranch, Silas fortifies, boards the windows, counts ammunition, sets up positions where defenders can hold against superior numbers. He's done this before. In Georgia during the war. In the days before Sherman's march, when Confederate guerrillas would attack supply lines and you had to be ready or you'd be dead. Nora watches him work. You think it'll come to this, actually fighting? I think Pike's pride just took a beating in front of the whole town. He'll want to restore it. And the only way he knows how to do that is through violence. When soon, he won't wait long. Waiting gives people time to organize, to prepare. He'll come fast and hard and try to end this before anyone else can rally. How many men can he bring? 10, maybe 12 if he calls in favors. And we have us, Thad, Daniel, Ruth if she insists, which she will, Doc Jenkins, maybe Reverend Abrams if it comes to it. 6 people against 12. I've faced worse odds. Did you win? I'm here, aren't I? She doesn't look reassured. That night they take shifts. Silas watches until midnight. Then Nora insists on taking over despite his protests. She sits by the window with the Colt 45 in her lap and her eyes on the tree line. Alert, ready. He tries to sleep on the sofa. Can't. Keeps seeing Nora standing in that church facing down Pike without hesitation. Keeps hearing her words. I think he's starting to love me too. Is he? He doesn't know. Doesn't trust his own judgment on matters of the heart. He loved Evelyn and she died. He cared about the men in his unit during the war and they died too. Loving things seems to be a good way to lose them. But Nora's different. She's not asking him to love her. She's just asking him to let her stand beside him. And maybe that's enough. Maybe love isn't some grand declaration. Maybe it's just choosing to show up every day and fight for the same things. Around 3 in the morning, the attack comes. No warning, just gunfire and breaking glass and the sound of horses circling the cabin. Silas is up and firing back before Nora can shout. The Winchester barks. Once, twice, 3 times. A man screams in the darkness. How many? I count 8 horses. Pike. Can't tell. More gunfire. Bullets punching through the boarded windows. Splinters flying. Nora returns fire with the Colt. Calm. Methodical. Not panicking. The siege lasts 20 minutes. Then Pike's voice cuts through the chaos. Brennan, send the woman out and this stops. Go to hell. You're outnumbered and outgunned. This can end easy or hard, your choice. Silas looks at Nora. She shakes her head. Not a chance. She's under my protection. She stays with me. Then you both burn. The first torch lands on the porch, then another and another. Within seconds, the front of the cabin is engulfed. Heat and smoke pouring through the cracks. They can't stay. Can't breathe. Back door, now. They run through the kitchen, out into the night. Bullets chase them. Nora stumbles. Silas catches her. Keeps moving. They make it to the barn foundation. What's left of it, anyway. Enough rubble and charred timber to provide cover. Pike's men are circling. Closing in. 8 of them. Maybe 9. Hard to count in the darkness and smoke. Silas has 17 rounds left in the Winchester. Nora has 4 in the Colt. Not enough. Not nearly enough. I'm sorry, he says. I should have gotten you out of here when I had the chance. Shut up. We're not dead yet. She fires. A man falls. 3 rounds left. Silas drops 2 more men with the Winchester. 14 rounds left. But Pike's smart. He's keeping his distance, forcing them to waste ammunition on suppressing fire instead of killing shots. And when they run out, he'll move in. Then hoofbeats. Different ones. Coming fast from the south. Ruth's voice cuts through the night. Get down. They drop. Shotgun blast. Double-aught buck at close range. Devastating. 2 of Pike's men go down screaming. Thad and Daniel arrive right behind her. Rifles blazing. The odds shift. 8 attackers become 4. 4 becomes 3. Pike realizes he's losing. Pulls back. Fall back, regroup. His men retreat. Not running, just tactical withdrawal. They'll be back. But for now, the fight is over. Silas helps Nora up. She's bleeding, shoulder wound. Not serious, but it needs attention. I'm fine. You're shot. I said I'm fine. Doc Jenkins appears from the smoke like a ghost with a medical bag. Let me see. While Doc works on Nora, Silas surveys the damage. The cabin is gone, fully engulfed, everything they owned. Everything Evelyn left behind, gone. Ruth puts her hand on his shoulder. We'll rebuild. With what? I'm broke, Ruth. The barn cost me every spare dollar I had. I can't rebuild the cabin. You won't have to. The town will. Half the town is with Pike. Half isn't all. And the half that matters, the half with actual principles, they'll help. You'll see. She's right. Over the next 3 days, people arrive. Not everyone, but enough. They bring lumber and nails and mower. They rebuild the barn first. Then they start on a new cabin. Bigger than the old one. Better. Pike doesn't interfere. He's licking his wounds. Lost 5 men in the attack. 2 dead, 3 wounded. The territorial marshal from Cheyenne is asking questions. Even Pike can't make that many bodies disappear without scrutiny. On the 4th day after the attack, Pike shows up alone. No guns, no men, just him on a horse looking older than his 46 years. Silas meets him at the property line. Winchester in hand but not raised. You here to finish it? I'm here to talk. We don't have anything to talk about. I think we do. Pike dismounts, walks forward with his hands visible. I underestimated you, Brennan, and I underestimated your wife. That's on me. What do you want, Pike? I want to end this, before more people die. Little late for conscience. Not conscience, practicality. The territorial marshal is circling. If this keeps escalating, he'll find things I'd rather stay buried. Pike pauses, looks at the ground. When he speaks again, his voice is different, quieter, almost human. You want to know the truth about Evelyn. Silas's blood runs cold. What about her? I sold her that medicine. The one she took for the cough. Told her it would help. It didn't. It made everything worse. You poisoned her. I didn't know it would kill her. But yeah, I sold her tainted medicine because the real stuff cost more, and I wanted the profit. When she died, I figured it was just bad luck. Then I did the same thing to 6 other people. 2 of them were my wives. Silas raises the Winchester. Finger on the trigger. 1 shot. That's all it would take. So now you know, Pike says. I'm the reason your wife died. You going to kill me for it? Give me one reason why I shouldn't. Because if you do, you become me. And Evelyn didn't marry a killer. She married a man trying to be better than what the war made him. The words hit like physical blows. Silas's hand shakes on the rifle. I could make it look like self-defense. You could, and you'd be right, but you'd still have to live with it. And I think you've lived with enough ghosts. Silas lowers the rifle. Not out of forgiveness, out of something else. Something that feels like exhaustion mixed with clarity. Get out of Red Cliff. Sell everything. Leave. And if I ever see you again, I will kill you. Not for Evelyn. For me. Pike nods slowly. 4 months. That's how long it'll take to sell everything. After that, I'm gone. Make it 3. 4. Final offer. Take it or shoot me now. Silas looks at this man who killed his wife through greed and negligence. This man who's terrorized a town. This man who's standing here offering surrender disguised as negotiation. 4 months. Then I never want to hear your name again. They shake hands, not reconciliation. Just 2 men acknowledging that the war's over and neither of them won. Pike leaves, rides away. Silas watches until he's gone. Nora comes out of the half-built cabin, arm in a sling but otherwise recovered. Is it over? I think so. Do you trust him? No, but I think he's smart enough to know when he's beaten. The town turned on him. Even the people who were afraid found courage. That's not something he can fight. What did he tell you about Evelyn? Silas is quiet for a long time. Then he's the reason she died. Sold her bad medicine. Killed her for profit. Nora's hand goes to her mouth. Silas. I almost shot him. Should have. But you know what stopped me thinking about what Evelyn would say? She'd tell me that killing him wouldn't bring her back. It would just make me like him. So what now? Now we finish building, and we figure out what the rest of our lives look like. She looks at the cabin rising from ash and hope. I've been thinking about that, about the 6 months. And I don't want to leave. His heart does something complicated. You sure? I'm sure this place, this life it's not what I expected, but it's become something I want, if you'll have me. Nora, I'm broken. I'm damaged. I wake up with nightmares. I see ghosts. I'm not the man you deserve. Maybe not, but you're the man I choose. And I think given time, we could be good for each other, if you're willing to try. He looks at her, really looks at her, sees not a mail-order bride or a woman who needed saving, sees a partner, an equal, someone who's fought beside him and earned her place. I'm willing to try. She smiles, reaches for his hand. He takes it. They stand there holding hands while the sun sets over Wyoming and the future stretches out before them, full of possibility. 4 months later, Luther Pike sells his last property. The day he leaves, Red Cliff Silas and Nora watch from their porch as the wagons roll past. Pike stops his horse at the property line one final time. This isn't over, Brennan. Yes, it is. Maybe for now, but empires fall, towns change, and when that happens, I'll remember. Silas raises the Winchester, not threatening, reminding. So will I. Pike rides away, this time forever. Nobody sees him off. Nobody cares where he goes. He's just gone, and that's enough. The cabin is finished, 4 rooms instead of 2, a real bedroom for Silas and Nora. 2 additional rooms for the future they're building together. They have a second wedding, small, just Ruth and Doc and Thad and Daniel and Reverend Abrams. This time when they say the vows, they mean them. This time when Potter asks if they take each other, there's no hesitation. This time when Silas kisses his wife, it's not for show. It's real. A year and a half after Pike leaves, Nora is pregnant, 7 months along and glowing. They're sitting on the porch watching the sunset when she asks about Evelyn. Do you still miss her every day? But it's different now. Less like grief and more like gratitude. She gave me 6 good years and then she gave me you. That's a gift I don't take lightly. Do you think she'd approve of us? I think she planned it. Every bit of it. She knew exactly what she was doing when she chose you. She chose well then. Yeah, she did. They sit in comfortable silence, his hand on her swollen belly, feeling their child move. Proof that broken things can heal. That loss doesn't have to be the end of the story. 2 months later, on a cold January morning in 1886, the labor begins. It lasts 18 hours. Doc Jenkins works through the night, sweat on his weathered brow despite the winter cold. Nora screams, the kind of screaming that comes from a place beyond pain, beyond anything Silas has experienced, even in war. He holds her hand, helpless, useless, watching the woman he loves suffer and unable to do anything about it. I can't do this, she gasped between contractions. Her face is pale, too pale. Yes, you can. You fought Pike. You can fight this. That was different. That was... Another scream cuts her off. Doc's face is grave. The baby's breech, feet first instead of head. I need to turn it. Will she survive? I don't know. The next hours are the longest of Silas's life. Longer than any battle. Longer than watching Evelyn die. Because this time he has something to lose that he didn't know he wanted until it was threatened. At dawn, a baby's cry fills the cabin. A girl, Doc says, placing the infant in Nora's arms. Perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, strong lungs. Silas looks at his wife, exhausted, bloody beautiful, holding their daughter. And he feels something break open in his chest. Not pain, the opposite of pain. Joy so pure it hurts. Evelyn Ruth Brennan, Nora whispers. He kisses her forehead. Perfect. Over the years, 3 more children follow. 2 boys, Thomas and Daniel. Another girl, Margaret. The ranch prospers. They help 23 mail-order brides find safe homes. Some marry, some don't. All of them find family. The children grow. Evelyn becomes a teacher. Thomas, a rancher. Daniel, a doctor. Margaret, a writer who publishes stories about the West that make people back east cry. Silas Brennan lives to see his grandchildren born, 12 of them, watches them run through the same fields where he once thought he'd die alone and drunk. On a summer evening in 1924, Silas is 80 years old, surrounded by 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and Nora still sharp-eyed at 68, still the woman who refused to be owned. Young Thomas, age 8, climbs onto his grandfather's lap. Tell us about the war, Grandpa. Silas looks at Nora. She nods. They've talked about this, about how much to tell, about which stories are for passing on and which are for taking to the grave. The war taught me about death, he says slowly. Taught me that killing is easy and living is hard. But your grandmother, he squeezes Nora's hand. She taught me about living, about standing up when it's easier to run, about loving when it's safer to stay numb. His breathing is getting harder, shallower. Nora leans close. The children should go, she says softly. No, let them stay. Let them see that dying isn't something to fear. It's just the last part of living. The family gathers closer. His children, their children. A legacy built from ash and hope. I kept the promise, didn't I? He whispers to Nora. She knows which promise he means. The one he made to Evelyn. The one he made to himself. The promise to live instead of just survive. Every day of 40 years, my love. Every single day. His last breath is a sigh of contentment. Of a man who started broken and ended whole. Of a cowboy who thought he had lost his chance at living and found it on a train from Boston. Nora holds his hand long after it goes still. The family cries. She doesn't. Not yet. Later, when they're gone and she's alone on the porch they built together, she'll cry. But now she just holds his hand and remembers. 2 years later, in 1926, they bury Silas Colt Brennan in the Red Cliff Cemetery next to Evelyn. The headstone reads, Silas Colt Brennan, 1844 to 1924. Beloved husband and father, he learned to live again. Nora lives 4 more years. Strong until the end, still running the ranch, still helping mail-order brides find their way, still telling stories about a man who thought he was beyond saving and a dead woman who knew better. When she dies in 1930, they bury her beside Silas. Her headstone simple: Eleanor, Nora Brennan, 1856 to 1930. Beloved wife and mother, she taught him how. The ranch passes to their children, then to their children's children. 140 years later, it's still in the family, still standing. Red Cliff Ranch, where a broken soldier and a desperate widow built something that lasted. In the main house, now expanded to 10 rooms, there's a photograph on the wall, Silas and Nora on their second wedding day. Real smiles this time, real love. Beneath it, a framed letter, the one Evelyn wrote, the one that started everything. Visitors read it sometimes. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren who want to know where they came from, who want to understand how a dead woman's letter changed the course of a family. The letter ends the way it always did. Give her a chance, give yourself a chance. Live, love again. That's not a request, it's a dying woman's command. Forever yours, Evelyn. And 3 generations later, standing in a house built on the foundation of that command, a great-granddaughter named Evelyn Ruth Brennan III reads those words and understands. Sometimes salvation doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it arrives on a train from Boston with nothing but courage and a letter from a woman who saw the future clearer than anyone imagined possible. Sometimes the things we don't ask for are exactly what we need. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, broken pieces fit together into something whole. The last promise was kept. The broken were made whole. And love, real love, proved to be worth every fight.